Welcome to the Westerville City Schools Board of Education. We have already been through call to order and an executive session, so we'll move on in the agenda to agenda item 3.01. Would you please stand and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Moving on, agenda item 4.01, district highlights of recognition. We have none this evening. Agenda item 5.01, approval of the minutes, regular meeting, Board of Education, held Monday, June 12 of this year. We don't formally approve, but ask if there's any questions or corrections. Hearing none, moving on to agenda item 6.01, performance target update. We're going to receive an update. Dr. Kellogg.
Thank you, President Velardo, members of the board. Yes, just a quick presentation this evening. It's my pleasure to kind of give an update. We're calling an update on where our district performance targets for this school year. It's kind of a soft presentation that some of these numbers aren't final yet, but I want to kind of go through where we're at. So at the start of this school year, we identified, let me back up and say, we have literally probably hundreds of goals each school year, from individual teachers and classrooms to individual students to buildings to departments to the district overall. And so when I highlight the 6 I'm about to, it's not to say that these are the only things, the only priorities we had, but these were some numbers as we looked at our quality profile and our performance the last couple of years that we felt these were some numbers that were moving in the wrong direction, needed to be maintained and headed in the right direction. So this is not to say that this is all the work, but this is some of the main highly focused work that we did this year. So there were 6 areas where we had district level performance targets as opposed to building or department targets. We wanted to increase our graduation rate, want to continue to look at 3rd grade reading guarantee. We wanted to make sure more of our kids were graduating college and career ready and looking at that coursework. We've been emphasizing a lot integration of instructional technology into the classroom, so we want to measure teachers' approaches to that. We want to keep an eye on our state assessments, although they're changing a lot. And then the other one is on financial. We want to make sure we're spending, directing our money towards the classroom. Those are the 6 district performance targets that we unveil at the start of the school year. Buildings and operational departments each have their own as well. These are ones that we focus on. I'm going to, as I said, soft numbers, and that much of this is tied to the local report card and the data isn't in yet, but I'm going to give you what we know at this point. So in terms of graduation rate, one of the reasons we focus on this, you can see in the trend line, I want to make sure I get it right. The blue line is our graduation rate, 4-year cohort graduation rate. Remember, the state report card calculates both the 4-year cohort rate and the 5-year cohort rate. Cohort meaning once a student enters the high school in 9th grade, the clock starts ticking. And that's important to know because a lot happens to students between 9th grade and 12th grade that can alter their graduation pathway. It also means students that come to us at some point in their high school career then become part of our cohort. So in theory, you can have a student move in midway through their 11th grade year who's credit deficient from wherever they're coming from, and they're now on our rolls as part of our graduation. That's why the state maintains a 5-year cohort rate as well. We focused on the 4-year rate. The main reason being, as you can see, there was a decline going on in 12, 13, 14, and 15. Didn't like that trend line going in the wrong direction. So we established graduation rate, wanted to get it to 92%. The other thing to keep in mind is the graduation rate is always a year in arrears on the report card. So, for example, the report card that's set to come out with this past year's data won't have the class of 2017 that we just graduated. It would have the class of 2016. What I do know is our sneak preview as to the class of 2016, which will be on this report card, at this time, and it's not final, is that not, oops, my apologies, and that was that. Our graduation rate for 2016, last year's graduating class that's supposed to be on this report card, at this point is at 90.5. So we're headed in the right direction again. Apologize, I got something in my throat. This year, we focused on the class of 2017. And walking across the stage in May, our count was at 92.3%. And I say walking across the stage in May because summer school counts for graduation. And with a graduating class of about 1,100, every 11 kids is another 1%. And so we have kids in summer school who either need OGT or might be credit deficient that we're focused on in order to keep moving that number up. So what I'm pleased to say is we're in the 2015 data, we had dropped to 88.9. We're headed towards, looks like 90.5% for this report card, and in a year from now, we'll be at 92.3. Work here was just focus. Scott Reeves and his team did a great job pulling EMIS data at the start of the school year. One of the things that's difficult to do, we've had a tendency to look at graduation starting with the senior class when they become seniors, forgetting anybody who may now be credit deficient, who's not showing up as a senior, or students who may have exited us, gone to the EOS, or may have been expelled, or we've had trouble finding where they've gone they move, if we don't get a records request from where they go. So if a student moves and we can't account for where they went, we don't get a records request, they sit on our rolls until we get the records request. And sometimes that can be very awkward. You have some transient populations that literally may just go someplace and we have difficulty tracking them down on our records. So Scott and his team did a great job at the start of the school year to get an accurate roll for the cohort, to hand that over to the principals and guidance counselors, to scrub that down, make sure they could account for all those children, and keep track of them all year long. They did a great job of that this year in terms of graduation rate. And I know they're already on the class of 2018 and tracking that class. They're watching who's in summer school this year. One of the high schools, I think it was Westerville Central, their building goal was to reduce the number of credit deficient freshmen and sophomores. What they're doing is projecting out. We see a lot of students in that 9th and 10th grade year get behind the 8 ball in terms of credits, and it's an uphill battle the rest of the way. So they're trying to cut those numbers down. I thought that was a good goal. So I'm pleased to say, as it looks right now, our trend is headed in the right direction. We'd like to get that graduation rate over 95% here in the near future and keep climbing upward. Keep in mind, this is also a time period of changing graduation requirements. Algebra 2, or its equivalent, and new state assessments. New state assessments will take place next year, and that's going to be part of a game changer for us, but we're working hard on it. So I'm very pleased with the job folks did on this goal this last year. Any questions on graduation rate?
Just a couple. One a question and one as a thought. We always talk about how kids stay on our rolls when we don't know where they go until we find out where they've gone. How many kids is that typically a year? Are we talking 1%?
It's not that many. It's probably less. I'm going to guess it's probably less than 1%. It's not that big a number as it's got. The hard part is it's just a lot of labor between the enrollment center and the schools trying to make phone calls and send letters and figure out where those young people are. But over the course of time, we've gotten better at collecting that data. I think our biggest stumbling block in this class, looking at summer school, is without surprise, Algebra 2. We have a fair number of current students who should have graduated in May who are making up a credit of Algebra 2 in summer school. The state allows you to adopt a course. It's an Algebra 2 or its equivalent. So we have built an Algebra 2 equivalent course that we've put in place that will help us as we move forward.
I did come up with another question while you were talking, as I'm looking at what affects our roles. And as we dig into our data more, what are we seeing as regards the kids who return to us, say, from places like ECOT?
That's the hard one. Where we are fortunate is that we have our academic enrichment center where students who are credit deficient can use the online program, APEX, which is a great curriculum, and they can accelerate their credit attainment so they can go at their own pace. And so Dr. Ebrick and his staff there do a great job with their graduation. In fact, they were involved in moving this number. So that's a great place where you get a senior, simple math. If you have a student who's in their fourth year who's supposed to graduate that year, who's 10 credits behind starting in September, you can't do 10 credits in a regular school year. You have to find another path. So our Academic Enrichment Center has been a value add to us in terms of helping kids get caught up, either moving to us late from another place, or of our own kids who get behind the 8 ball. So that's been a good value add for us.
The last thing that was on my mind about this is that the roots of failing to graduate or dropping out often dig in middle school. And, sixth grade even is a very pivotal year when we look at what happens to kids over time. I'm not talking about our district in particular, I'm talking about overall. And I think it's important to keep in mind that we are looking at that and that we're working on that, and Scott has a significant focus on that moving forward. So when we talk about it, it's not just the cohort, or the cohort, maybe I should say, begins far before ninth grade.
Absolutely.
And we're actively looking at that and working on that, and changes have already occurred, and I expect more changes to be recommended.
I think a great example of the way we can build programming to create pipelines for kids is our engineering program, which its origins were with the Fab Lab and that 7th grade course we put in a couple years ago, and we've now been unveiling that curriculum in the high school and saw high enrollment this year, its first year, and have high enrollment as we add those courses. So you kind of have a pipeline of interest for kids that you develop early on that keeps them engaged and interested in school. And there's all kinds of things that we need to do. For some kids it's music, for some kids it's theater, for some kids it's athletics, for some kids it's a particular academic program. Strong relationships with adults, all those are key factors that we look at. That's a great thing about these numbers. Underneath them, there's a lot of story, and we understand that. Our next goal is third grade reading guarantee. I've given you the data from, this will be the third year of the third grade reading guarantee. LRC is local report card. In 14-15, the first year, we actually had by summer's end, a pass rate of 99.5%. And then in 15-16, we dropped a tick, 99.4. Going into summer, based on the calculations we had, we're at 96.5. The important thing to remember here is every year the cut score for the state goes up. And so it's one of those moving finish lines that keep going down. And so even going into next year, until the cut score is the same as proficiency rate, they'll continue moving the cut score up.
So do you have an idea of the number of kids that are just on the cusp?
Yep. So what we do is we track. We're always projecting ahead, knowing where the cut score is going to go. We know the impact. Literacy, elementary literacy as a program, Barb Wallace and her team with the instructional coaches and the reading teachers, our resources there have been very impactful. They've added a reading program, Foundations, that's had great evidence-based results for us. So they run a great balanced literacy program that we're seeing pay dividends as our kids, because as the cut score keeps going up and we keep making it, so we're meeting the demand, and we're always projecting ahead. Barb and her team are trying to find stronger correlations between short cycle assessments we use during the year, to, for example, from STAR or Fontenay Pinnell, and to see how those serve as predictors for future success on third grade reading guarantee. Some of them are stronger than others as a predictor. So if we give a practice test, we want to get an idea of what's past history on kids who have scored that on the practice test. What does that project to out in the future? So a lot of research, a lot of data, a lot of resources there. I think the building principals and their teams have done a very good job here. And I'm very confident we have a robust summer intervention program, actually 2 tiers to it, really. We added a little piece at the end I think I have the number right, Barb, it's about 40 students remaining. So we feel pretty confident that we're going to continue to meet that mark, but it's going to get, again, challenging again. But we'll step up and get better as well. It's been nice because with Barb's leadership and the principals and those resources, our capacity has grown alongside of the increasing expectations of the state. So people's understanding of the best practices, the use of the materials that we have, the training that we're doing, the coaches, all of that is finally getting some synergy, and I think that synergy is what's keeping us ahead of the curve as the finish line moves, so to speak.
So can I ask one more quick question?
Oh, yeah.
CTOP, are we giving the CTOP to the kids that we notice are struggling? Mm-hmm. Okay. I noticed it in a couple offices this year. It's cool.
So I feel pretty confident. Our goal was 97%, which seems like we're going backwards, but that was really a reflection of trying to accommodate what does it mean if the state keeps moving the cut score up. So I know Barb and her team, it's 99 is all the way is what they want.
Well, and I don't want to belabor this too much. I know we're trying to, but I think it's really an affirmation I'd like to put out to the team. I think I'm remembering this correctly, that there are some students that did not pass and did not sign up for summer intervention. And we hunted,
Reached out.
we reached out to those.
Intensively.
I'm sorry, that's my wording, we reached out to them, and I think I'm just affirming the team, because sometimes the perception is that in the summer things go dormant, and there were a number of students that didn't pass, and we reached out to the family. And as I recall, we got a chunk of them, you understand, I'm just using my own words here. We got a chunk of them to sign up. 8 out of 11. Yeah, and I'm just saying this out loud as an affirmation, that I think it's a wonderful thing that there are kids that didn't sign up, and we went to them and said, we want to help you. And 8 out of 11 took us up on it. So I think it's awesome.
One of the phenomena that comes with increasing the cut score every year is that under the third grade reading guarantee, you have to, K3, do some beginning of the year assessments to determine who has to be on a reading intervention plan. So what that means is if you're raising the cut score, then the number of students being identified for intervention each year grows. And I believe, and I was sharing with Dr. Nestor Baker, I have some research that supports this, that the breadth of the third grade reading guarantee and the number of kids it's capturing and saying you need intervention is too big. That cut score is at a point where we're now focusing resources on students who really don't need those resources to focus them. So it's spreading us thinner over more kids. And it's unfair, I think, to kids who are then being identified as needing reading intervention. It may not be. It's just they're not, in the fall of third grade, they're not ready, or their growth. I mean, clearly, with those numbers, we'll get it done. But that's the state of things. Perhaps the place I would proudly say we knocked it out of the ballpark the most was in this particular metric. As you know, we specify college and career readiness coursework as being advanced placement, international baccalaureate, kids who enroll at the Career Center, career technical education we offer in-house, and College Credit Plus. For those for us, the more kids we get involved in that kind of coursework and transcripted, the better off we are. And the numbers this year were really pretty outstanding. We were going for a 5% increase in that enrollment from 3590 last year, and we were at 5252, which is 46.3% increase. You can see in AP, we had almost 1,000 seat increase. In IB, 190 seat increase. The Career Center, those are kids in half-day programs and full-day programs, and we contract those seats, so there's a limit to how many seats we have down there. And then growth in some of the programming that you've all approved over the last couple of years in career technical education, in business and engineering, et cetera. Oftentimes, those are dual enrollment courses. Those kids are getting credit from Columbus State and other universities as well, and in College Credit Plus. Those numbers, the interesting thing here is that 5252 is absent College Credit Plus. We don't have those numbers yet because those kids need to enroll at those colleges. So, but that 182 from last year was a climb from the year before. So I would anticipate that 182 is going to go up, and so this number is going to go up even more. A couple of things led to this. One of them, of course, being just additional coursework that we've put on that have attracted more students. AP Psychology, AP Statistics were two that we put in place that have attracted a lot of students. Same thing at IB, coursework that you all have approved in materials. And same thing with career technical education and College Credit Plus, as well as, I think, our parent meetings at the high school in terms of awareness about those programs and explaining them have been there. A focus on them with guidance counselors, and then the lead hire equal opportunity school component that Mr. Reeves and his staff were involved with, which was about increasing representation of increasing enrollment of underrepresented populations in those courses. And the cool thing is, based on the numbers that Mr. Reeves shared with me, our minority enrollment in this coursework, and AP and IB coursework, if I get it straight, for 11th and 12th grade, was up 40%.
Great.
The good news, bad news is, it went up, but relative to the entire increase, it doesn't look like we made as much movement on equalizing to our total population. So it's good news as far as I'm concerned. So this is good stuff. This is an exciting one, and I'm excited to see where we can go now. I don't think we've hit the ceiling on this yet. I think there's a lot of room to go still. Lots of kids I think we can still attract, and very proud of staff, individual teachers who got involved in recruiting and talking to students, who talked to parents, guidance counselors who were involved. There was a whole secondary initiative around this. And it's led to great conversation back to middle school regarding middle school placement and coursework and the impact of access to higher level courses at middle school and the trajectory that sets for a student when they walk in the door at high school. And so they're starting to have those conversations about how those choices in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade may artificially create a boundary for a kid in terms of what coursework they're accessing in high school and their preparedness for it. This, for me, is about full capacity. The more open we are, the more invitational we are, the more kids we get in this coursework. I think there's lots of kids who walk our hallways that are under challenge from what they can do. I think that's and I think this is evidence of what's waiting for us. So excited about that one and proud of the work they did there.
Question.
Yeah.
Enrollment's the big deal, or a big deal, and are we seeing strong correlation in retention in the coursework?
That's our next piece, the retention, because this will be our first big year, and that was already a conversation. And of course, we've partnered with Lead Hire for a second year because that was a big piece for us. We want to maintain that third-party external kind of research-based group that helps us, guide us, and keeps us focused. So retention, and then to some degree, I'll be interested in student performance on the exams. I have some experience with this from previous work. I don't worry too much about that because what I do know is the research shows, for example, for an advanced placement, students who took an advanced placement course in high school and took the exam, regardless of how they scored on the exam, have better GPAs by their sophomore year in college than kids who didn't do that at all.
Yeah.
So even a 1 isn't the worst thing in the world because it's experience, right? You get that experience, the workload, the magnitude, the thinking, the whole piece comes, and you grow and you mature as a student. So it's good stuff. We like it when they get 3s and 4s too, though. Any other questions on this one? The other one is integration of instructional technology. So we wanted to get a handle on how our teachers were feeling about the use of technology in the classroom. So we have a rubric we use And in the fall, teachers took the rubric and self-scored themselves on a scale of 1 to 4, with 4 being, I'm really, really good at this, and 1 being, I'm not sure how to turn this on. In the fall, about 52% of the teachers self-rated themselves a 3. Of course, all year long, we have professional development associated with technology integration, more device rollout, more materials for them to use, want to see how their confidence grows. And in the spring, on the same slightly modified survey, it increased to 66.5. The interesting thing was, as we got ready for the second survey, a lot of people were reporting back, I have a better understanding of the components of this survey now than I did in the fall. So we modified the survey to allow teachers to say, okay, as you reflect back now where you were in the fall, where were you really at? That 52% in the spring dropped to about 40%. As they reflected back, no, I was really probably back here. Now that I understand better. And that's what we're looking for. This is about teacher confidence. When 66.5% of your teachers rate themselves a 3 or 4 in a rubric, what it says to me is they feel confident that they can use instructional technology in the classroom. It may not be at the level we want yet, but they have access, they feel confident that they can use it, so they're using it. And now we can get better at crafting the skill. When they don't have that confidence, they're not going to use it. So I think from an access standpoint, availability, their own personal understanding, these are good numbers. So we were excited about that one as well. Our goal was to have 60% by the end of the year, and we got 66.5. I think our professional development program, which included job-embedded PD with our 3 technology integration coaches who go into classrooms and work with teachers. We also contracted with a firm called ITSCO out of Hilliard. We contracted time with them that they would do that, and with professional development sessions throughout the year. We had our summer technology workshops at the end of the school year at Blendon that I went to, and there was numbers of teachers there learning how to use. In fact, we opened it up to substitutes this year. We had 31 substitutes show up for our tech boot camp. It was good.
I want to do a shout out also. You talked about the embedded professional development, and it's not just in the instructional technology piece. We also need to focus on, and you've mentioned this before, and you mentioned it earlier, but the whole idea of embedding professional development through the use of coaches has really paid off for our teachers and our kids. I'm very proud of the model. I'm proud of everyone who's engaged in it, and I want to give kudos to you for pushing it forward, and to Scott and to Barb for making sure that that happens the way it should happen and on throughout the organization. The embedded PD is key in our model to move our kids ahead.
Nothing moves people faster than someone working side by side with them.
Yeah, you're building not only skills, but you're building efficacy.
Absolutely. No, our coaches, the instructional coaches at the elementary and the technology coaches have done a fabulous job. We are in the process of reworking our learning and teaching roadmap, as you know. We'll have that in the fall, the update. A lot of the conversation is starting around, for example, instructional coaches, their technology skill set and their ability to integrate as part of that, as part of their PD, because it's related, right? It's related. So we want greater integration around how technology affects teaching, which is really the key, right? And we have some teachers out there just blow it out of the water with what they're doing in the classroom with their technology and making very exciting and engaging student-centered classrooms. And I think we're just going to grow our capacity there along the way.
Just a question of curiosity, I think. And I don't think it's parsed this way, but do we have any sense of the breakdown from elementary, middle, high, comfort level, and usage?
We do. We can break the data out that way. I may be saying something that I'm not totally accurate on, but I think I remember in looking at the data, they really didn't change.
Really?
Anecdotally, my own observation, and we've had this conversation, at the elementary level, we've purchased a lot of digital curriculum that teachers are using, Lexia and some others. Mm-hmm. At the secondary level, aside from Apex, which is fundamentally used for credit recovery, we haven't purchased similar products. So the difference is at the secondary level, a lot of what's happening is teacher-designed activities that they're embedding in Schoology, our learning management system, or in Google for Education. So teachers are pulling videos and creating activities and doing shared writing, et cetera, at the secondary level. The elementary level, a lot of it is more based on 20 minutes of working on Lexia or one of the other programs you have the kids are doing. And what I'd like to see is a little bit of flip-flop going on there, a little bit of both going on. We're also in the process of using technology to write our own textbooks. We have some teachers working at that to roll out in that direction. So, trying to find ways to make capitalize on the technology.
And I love that idea, in part because it allows them to be creative and use their knowledge and abilities and so on, but it's usually done in a group. There's usually a few teachers doing that together. Good. And this teacher is not quite as comfortable, and this teacher is more comfortable, and this teacher is helping this teacher. I just see really a community collaborative effort there. I just think that'd be awesome to see more and more of our own material coming to the fore. I love that idea. Always have.
It's pretty remarkable how far we've come and how fast. In the fall of 14 was the first year of implementing the roadmap, and our implementation was 19 teachers and some classroom devices, and now we've well over 10,000 devices. We're updating all of our ports and, more bandwidth, and yeah, it's good stuff. It's not one-to-one, because most kids are walking into school with a device in their pocket, too. So we're more like 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 in terms of devices to kids. So pretty remarkable. And a shout out to Greg Lewis and his team on the back end. The place where we really have done well is infrastructure. We don't have that many glitches. One of the areas that we'll have to wait on is state assessments. Our goal is we want to exceed the similar district averages on those state indicators, so we'll have to wait for that data to come, see what it looks like. Last year, on the 15-16 report card, against similar district averages, there were 24 indicators. On 13 of them, we were at or exceeded the similar district average. The margin of error on those that we missed were anywhere from we missed one by 0.1%. The worst was we missed one by a little over 8%. So we're hanging around the average of our similar districts. We want to outperform them. That's our target. So we'll have to wait for that data to come in. And the last one was all about spending and dollars on the classroom. This comes from the report card. Those are our numbers the last 2 years: 70.7%, 71.5%. 16-17 is pending. You're going to do appropriations this evening. Our goal is always get as many dollars to the classroom as possible. That's where the action happens, and stay focused on that. And one way you do that is follow the money. Where the money goes is where your priorities are. And so that's one of the things we try and do. So those were the 6 performance targets. Like I said, soft data. It's not all final yet, but I thought, you come off a busy school year where there's lots of twists and turns in the roads, and the dust settles, and you take a breath, and you go, whew, and then you say, what did we get done? And these are a couple of things I think that we got done pretty well. So thank you to the staff, to all the administrators, thank you to the board for their support, thank you to the community for helping us make this happen. We're looking forward to even further improvements. Happy to take any questions.
Any further questions or discussion? No. Awesome. Great report. Thank you, Dr. Kellogg. Yes, Lord. Moving on to agenda item 7.01, public comments related to action items. We have no one signed up this evening. Moving on to agenda item 8.01, resolution to approve financial reports and investments, May 2017, to authorize the treasurer to perform fiscal year-end adjustments if needed. The report lists all funds ending May 31, 2017. If I could have a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Griffith?
Mr. President, members of the board, the financial reports for May 31st for the general fund Year-to-date receipts are $170 million. Year-to-date expenditures are $149 million. Our unencumbered general fund balance is $96,063,000. For all funds, year-to-date receipts are $222,123,000. Our year-to-date expenditures for all fund is $199,408,000, and the unencumbered fund balance for all funds is $115,496,000.
Any questions? Thoughts? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo.
Yes. Agenda item 8.02, a motion to approve resolution for the final appropriations for all funds, school year 2016-17, fiscal year 2017. A motion and a second?
So moved.
Second?
It's really just up to you two,
Yeah,
you know?
that's
it's
right. We're just gonna
we're
toss it back
we're
and
just
forth.
working
Just
it.
taking turns.
You're just taking turns, that's good.
Right.
Okay,
Oh, look how fancy.
this is my chance to sing.
Hurry, Bart.
It's cold.
Okay, Mr. President, members of the board, in this presentation, the first part is for the fiscal year 17. There'll be a place for question and answer, but then the second part, it was for fiscal year 18. And so the first, second resolution you did will be for the first part, but when we get done, I'll ask you to do two of them. Okay? In keeping with my process, basis of presentation is this report represents anticipated revenues and expenditures. We believe we have everything finalized. We're working on actually closing appropriations today, closing the fiscal year. Laura was still working, I think, when you guys came in. We are taking the current amended appropriations and making them completely final for fiscal year 17, which will actually close the books for fiscal year 17. Keep in mind that this reporting entity is for Westerville City Schools only. It is not part of the county or the city or the public library. Okay, this is just Westerville City Schools. We are the fiscal agent for some parochial schools, but our appropriations are just for this entity. I gave you what's called a chart of accounts. It shows all of the funds that we deal with. General fund is the top left corner. The special revenue funds, you can see anywhere from public school support all the way down to federal grants. When you look at the reports, any 400 account, 401 through 499, is state grants, and the 500s are federal grants. Bond retirement is where we have several bonds that are outstanding. We basically pay our debt through the bond retirement. Permanent improvement is 003. Enterprise funds are 006. 009 is uniform school supply. If you remember, we transfer money usually twice a year. For those on free and reduced lunch, we transfer general fund into that fund to pay for that. We actually have that coming up here in a few minutes as well. Trust funds, self-insurance funds, and agency funds. So that's sort of the list of accounts we have. Keep in mind, when we do the financial report, there's 23 pages of funds that make up those numbers. So it may look small, but there's a lot of those. Appropriations are for this fiscal year. Usually by October 1st of each year, you have to have the resolutions in place. This resolution that you're doing tonight will be the final amended appropriations ending June 30th of 2017. The budgets are appropriated at the fund level. So what I gave you up there on the chart of account, those are all the fund level. We approve our appropriations here on the fund level, but we manage them on the object level. In keeping with what I usually give you, this is an educational time for you and the community. Here are the object codes. So when you see, well, what's an object code? This is how we categorize our expenditures. And I won't go into all these, but 100 are personal services, salaries. 200 are benefits, which is basically retirements, medical. There are no 300s object codes the state uses. 400s are purchase services, anything you would purchase somebody to do a service for you. 500s are supplies, materials. 600s are capital outlay. There are no 700s. There used to be, but there are no longer 700s. 800s are other objects, debt service, dues, fees. 900s are other uses of funds. So that's the object level. We actually appropriate to the fund level, but we keep track of everything by this object level. Okay. Tried to put a short graph together just to show you by expenses by object for this fiscal year. 100 salaries is $92.7 million. It's 56% of the money we spend are salaries. The benefits are 20% of that, $32,248,000. Under the 800, 900, where you see 10 million, we do buy purchase services from the ESC for salaries. So some of that money will equate. So if it says 56 and 20 is 76%, we probably get another 5 or 6% from the county to add those into there so that everything's transparent is where we go. But that's just a graph then to show you, we are, our machinery are our people. With, the money we spend, the majority does go to staffing because that's who's doing the work. This was just a graph that shows you where we were from fiscal year 11 based on the object level, again, through 17. Graphically, you can see staffing by far is the highest thing we spend. Everything out to the right of other objects, so you can see these at your leisure. We don't have to go through these, but you can see where we are with all the expenditures. I tried to break this out because sometimes it says, well, what did we spend on regular instruction, or what do we spend on special vocation? Sometimes there are different functions within one category. So I tried to give you colors, and then I tried to give you from left to right category. You can see that if we just break out all of the regular instruction, the 1100s, $75.2 million, that one's pretty much in a category by itself, but you can see some of the special vocational includes the vocational with it. So I tried to give you a little bit of example of how they fit into each other by function code. This is just another general fund expenditure comparison by function. If you look at the 1100, 1200s, it gives you a history from 2011 through 2017. If you look in 2011, for salaries, we were 64.9, and 17 we're 75.2. The special instruction was at 18 million. We're at 25 million now in special education. So you can see some trends in some of the different function codes that are changing over time. Just food for thought for you there. Just another way for you to look at the information. The expenses by function, again, graphically, if you want to see what it was, you can see that regular instruction is $75.2 million. The next biggest one would be the special vocational instruction at $15.7 million. So, again, you can kind of see graphically where the money goes. This is a sheet of the appropriation sheet that has all of the funds listed that we submit to the county auditor. I tried to give you, back in May, we did an amended appropriations, so you can see there's nothing changed from the general fund, but between May and now, you can see some of the other changes that we've increased that we're modifying for this appropriations. Back in May, total appropriations were $222,597,000. Today, they're $220,169,000, which is a $2 million decrease. This is what you're actually approving, is this sheet here is what you'll actually be approving first for fiscal year 17 to modify the appropriations, and then I had you sign some stuff. We always had to put a signature on the John's signature too. It just shows that the funds we have available to meet these demands as well as going forward. So there's a sheet we always had to fill out with this with the county auditor, which sort of looks something, part of it looks something like this. It has the dollar amount listed for fiscal year 17, says we have the authority to spend this, and has the board members and how they voted, and then we'll have to sign that when it's done. So it's kind of a quick presentation for the current fiscal year. Any questions at all about what I gave you, or anything you'd like to see different, or follow-up information?
I'm always grateful, really, in the explanation process. I've been doing this for a few years now, but for me and for the teaming people that watch this, it's helpful. So thank you.
All right, so let's do 18 for real quick. 18, again, it's the same process. That what we'll be approving here at the second resolution we do will be the appropriations will go to $220,169,000. The sheet looks like this. We call these final appropriations, but these can be amended as many times as you want. For instance, we had a straight A grant that we got a couple months ago. If things happen during the year, we get different grants. These can be changed throughout the course of the year. We call them final appropriations, but could they be changed in September, October, November? Absolutely, they can be. This is a starting point for us for the district. It'd be nice if these wouldn't change, but that's just not how it works. There's always change somewhere. You get more or less depending on, where you start. So this sheet here will represent the appropriations we're using for next fiscal year, for fiscal year 2018. And there'll be a resolution after we do the first one. Looks like this. It has the dollar figure associated with this. There'll be a roll call and so forth. And so, I like that. So,
Here's me.
any questions?
Blew my mind.
All right. I'll take him off.
Any questions on the 17 or the 18? Because we have asked for a motion for 17, and then I'll ask for a motion for 18. But we wanted to go through them both.
We need a
Any
roll call.
questions?
No, there are
What's
no
that?
surprises.
Roll call.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure neither. So, yes, please call a roll for 2017.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes. Now, may I have a motion and a second for 2018?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes. Thank you very much, Bart. Agenda item 8.04, resolution to approve the transfer of funds from General Fund 001 to the Uniform School Supplies Fund 009 in the amount of $27,500. And Bart, he just went over this, if you caught this, was in the appropriations. So may I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions on that one? I mean, we just went, okay. Please call the roll.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Griffith. Moving on to agenda item 9, personnel consent agenda. We will take these together. Ask for a motion.
I got to pull one out.
Okay. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to?
Actually, I was just looking at board policy to make sure we have enough
All
pass it
four.
with an abstention.
And we might, yeah,
I think we do. I think we're good.
as long as there's a quorum, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe we're good.
So,
Which ones do you want to pull out?
9.09, one-time payment licensed.
so may I have a motion then for 9.01 through 9.12, except 9.09? Did I get that one right?
Yes.
9.09?
So moved.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, yes, please.
Good evening, President Velardo, members of the board. Tonight's consent agenda contains 10 sections involving 315 persons. Section 9.01 is the resignation of 6 classified employees and 17 substitutes. I think I have Dr. Kellogg's frog in my throat. My apologies. 9.02 is the resignation of 1 administrator, Rodney Johnson, who'll be leaving us to go to Columbus Public, and we want to thank him for his service. He's been with us since 2006 as both a math teacher at the middle school and an assistant principal. We wish him all the best. We also have the resignation of 3 teachers. 9.03 is a corrective action for 1 teacher. 9.04 is a leave of absence for 3 teachers. 9.05 is a change of assignment for 2 classified employees and 3 temporary changes of assignment. 9.06 is a change of assignment for 1 nurse. 9.07 is a contractual status change for 5 classified employees. 9.08 is a contractual status change for 1 nurse. 9.09 is a variety of one-time payments for 55 teachers. 9.10 is the reemployment of 2 classified employees. 9.11 is the employment of 1 classified administrator and 7 classified employees and 3 substitutes. 9.12 is the employment of 2 building administrators, and while neither of our new administrators were able to join us this evening, I'd like to welcome Josh Duvall, who will be our new athletic director at South High School. Josh comes to us from Buckeye Valley Local Schools and Columbus Public Schools, where he was experienced athletic director from those two districts. And Taylor Porter, who is joining us as our new assistant principal at South, is coming to us from the Bright Fellows Program, an alternative path to principalship, and he has spent the last year in Dayton Public Schools. So we welcome Taylor and Josh to South High School and to Westerville. We also have the employment of 16 teachers, a wide variety of supplemental contracts, summer intervention, and home instruction tutors. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lori. Any questions or comments this time? None? Mr. Griffith, please call the roll.
Dr. Nestor Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo.
Yes. Now, taking a look at 9.09, may I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
I think I can second, David, even if I'm not going to vote on it. I'm just moving it onto
I
the
think,
table.
yeah.
Yep, I'm good that way.
See?
And I read our policies and we're good.
So you're seconding it.
I'm seconding it.
All right, awesome. Any questions, thoughts? Mr. Griffith, please call the roll.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker,
Abstain.
Mr. Velardo.
Yes. Thank you very much, Lori. Moving on to agenda item 10, recommended action 10.01. These are a number of final reading policies, and so we have gone through these already, but I'll go one by one just to see if there are any questions. But we won't take the time to discuss deeply unless there's something that has come up. 10.01, final reading, revised policy 4215, use of tobacco by classified staff, and 10.02, final reading, revised policy 7434, use of tobacco on school grounds. I'm putting those together because of the tobacco issue. Any questions? Let's do a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
No questions at this time. Mr. Griffith, please call the roll on those two.
Dr. Nestor Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo.
Yes. 10.03, final reading, revised policy 9160, public attendance at school events. A motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo.
Yes. 10.04, final reading, revised policy 2464, gifted education and identification. A motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Dr. Nestor Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo.
Yes. 10.05, final reading, revised policy 6325, procurement, federal grants and funds. A motion and a second.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, your
So
turn.
moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo.
Yes. 10.6, final reading, revised policy 6423, use of credit cards. A motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Dr. Nestor Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo.
Yes. 10.07, final reading, revised policy 6700, Fair Labor Standard Act. A motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Davidson,
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo.
Yes, and again, I know I don't need to repeat this, but I will, but these are final readings. That's the only reason we would go through them that quickly. We have read them, you all have had a chance to look at them, and hearing no questions, we move on. Agenda item 11, recommended action, new business. We have none this evening. Agenda item 12.01, donations. May I have a motion and a second?
My turn.
So,
I'm so moved.
Second.
second. We always are tremendously grateful. We say this each time, and I hope that each time we say it, it is believed. We are deeply grateful for the people that go above and beyond, regardless of the amount that is given, to further many opportunities for students and staff in our schools. If you all would like to say something, you're welcome to, but
You said it very well.
I know we're passionate about that. We had a motion and a second, right? Mr. Griffith, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes. Agenda item 12.02, overnight field trips. A motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. We have two great opportunities. North High School, both girls volleyball. Well, they're going to be crushing it. That's awesome. To Hocking Hills and to Mason, Ohio. So good for them. That's wonderful. Any questions, concerns?